Season 4.5 or mid-season 4 is live right now for Marvel Rivals as of the upload of this video. This patch saw the release of Daredevil along with a bunch of balance changes, so let's take a look, shall we? Angela's receiving a small buff here. After activating her Divine Judgment and she switches to her Axis of Icors, she gains bonus health per enemy struck, and that will be buffed from 30 health to 40 health per enemy hit, and for her allies it'll be 15 health to 20 health. Venom's getting a buff to his ultimate where it now applies a 30% healing reduction to enemies hit, which lasts 4 seconds, which is great into all these big defensive ultimates. Blade's been underperforming for a while, so the Daywalker is getting a boost where the dash secondary attack range will be increased from 4.5 meters to 6.5 meters. The duration of each slash speed attack stack gained during the Bloodline Awakening will be increased from 0.7 seconds to 1 second. And then there's a new effect where if he lands all 4 hits of his Whirlwind Slash, he now gets 1 stack for his slash attack speed. Alright, Daredevil is the brand new hero for this mid-season patch, and he is quite a complicated kit, so let's actually begin with his passive first, called Radar Sense. So you can see enemies moving behind walls and whatnot, so it's a pretty solid passive. His second passive is just Blind Ascent, where he's able to cling on the walls and spring off of them to reposition, basically a wall climb. Now let's move into his first primary fire, Justice Jab. This is your main bread and butter. You swing your billy clubs forward. Then you gain Fury on hit. He has 3 Fury bars in the center of the screen. Everything kind of plays around that. Let's actually skip over to his first ability called Devil's Latch. This fires a grappling line that reels Daredevil in and his target toward each other, so a gap closer. On completion, he will gain Fury, and it'll temporarily enable an ability called Righteous Cross. That is the other version of his Billy Club swings. It's a big X hit. Watch. Pam. So that's actually part of Devil's Latch right there in that video. This is just closing the gap. And the next auto attack, instead of the Justice Jab little swing, it'll be a big cross, like so. Okay, his next ability is called Infernal Fury. Now, remember I mentioned the Fury bars? You have 3 of them. When you swing them, you gain Fury. When you Devil's Latch, you gain Fury. So if you have Fury, you can consume them to unleash 2 abilities. It's called either Devil's Chain or Devil's Throw. Devil's Chain will convert damage dealt into bonus health. Devil's Throw will slow the hit target, so utility for your team. So here as the clip plays, you'll see he'll whack them with the normal Justice Jabs. Now I'm going to pause it right there. They just activated Infernal Fury, and you have 2 choices on your screen. You pick Devil's Chain with the left click or Devil's Throw with the right click. I'm not sure what the console buttons are, but it's the same as like Mr. Fantastic, where you choose one or the other. So Devil's Chain, the first one, just makes it so all his attacks give him bonus health. Look at his HP. Both of them will also temporarily enable the Righteous Cross. So as soon as you activate it and you choose the Devil's Chain, you get the little big X swing with the Billy Club as your first hit, and then it goes back to the jab whacks. Now this clip will now continue to play, and he'll choose Devil's Throw this time, which slows a target. It just throws like his Billy Clubs, and it does a little bit of utility, and it slows the enemies down for your team. Now, his next ability is called Sonic Pursuit. All this does is it picks a single target, locks onto them, and for this target, you will now gain increased speed when running towards them. You'll gain damage reduction when attacked, and while in range of that target you picked, you can dash to them, you can blind them, and it'll restore your Fury. Next ability is called Objection. The order of this is a little weird. I skipped the ultimate for now because I want to go in a more intuitive order. This is honestly just like a damage immunity button. So he'll whirl the Billy Clubs in a tight guard to block frontal damage and reflect projectiles, but you'll also become immune to all incoming harm during this stance and gain Fury. So you can deflect or reflect, quote unquote, Scarlet Witch's ult, for example, everything in front of you. Finally, his ultimate is called Let the Devil Out. Embrace the beast within. Enemies in Daredevil's line of sight will take damage and suffer a ramping blind effect, and you'll continually gain Fury while active. Basically just a big hunter's aura, big devil aura, like so. Finally, he does have a team up with the Punisher. Daredevil now shares a location of his Sonic Pursuit target with the Punisher, so whoever he marks, you can get increased speed and damage reduction when attacked, so Punisher gets that. At the same time, the Punisher can actually launch a Devil-infused shock grenade to damage and blind enemies as an active. That is the quick summary of Daredevil. Let's move on. Alright, Hela's getting some pretty significant changes this patch. For her ultimate Astral Flock, they're reducing the startup cast time, and then after casting, she will gain 25 bonus health. Now for Hela's team-ups, she is losing Ragnarok Rebirth, so she can no longer res Thor. However, she is now the anchor for the new team-up with Namor, and we'll talk about that ability in the Namor section afterwards. Mr. Human Torch is getting a decent nerf here. They're reducing the fire cluster damage per projectile, the little tiny pellet, from 5.5 to 5. And now there's a new effect where the fire cluster has a 0.5 second delay before his ammo begins to replenish. Another nerf here. And now during his plasma body, he'll be a little bit slower because they're reducing the movement speed from 900 units to 850 units. Iron Fist is getting a slight buff versus tanks because they're lowering the fixed damage of the Yat Ji Chung Quinn from 9 to 8, but they're increasing the percentage HP damage per strike from 2.7% to 3.1%. For Magik, she's only getting a nerf to her team up specifically with Doctor Strange, the Arcane Order, where the Chain of Cytorak cooldown will be increased from 15 seconds to 20 seconds, and then the slowing effect at max range is going to be decreased from 60% to 40%. Mr. Fantastic now gets a little bit more crowd control, or CC, because after successfully pulling an enemy with his distended grip, the target will now be afflicted with a 1 second immobilize effect, so they can't use any movement abilities. Okay, NetEase absolutely loves Namor in the team-ups because he's getting another change to it. The Gamma Charge, or the Gamma Monstro he gets from the Hulk, is now going to be gone, removed, and he gets a new one with Hela called Deep Wrath, where he now gets an ability called Tidal Dirge, which does a big splash of AoE damage, and it has a healing reduction effect, as noted by their HP bar color. But that's only part 1 of this team-up ability. Part 2 is that any elimination will summon a free Monstro for Namor. So look at this. 1 Monstro, 2 Monstro. And this is not a shared cooldown with any of your other Monstros. So if you kill people and you put up your own Monstros, you can have like 5 or 6 of them going at the same time. Phoenix getting a pretty healthy nerf here. The melee attacks on her will no longer give you spark stacks. Her primary weapon ammo will also no longer replenish during the Dark Ascent, and now they've added a 1 second cooldown to Dark Ascent. For Psylocke, they're reducing the self-slowing rate during the Dance of the Butterfly from 30% to 15%, so she moves a little bit quicker, and they're increasing each of the strikes damage from it from 150 to 170. Wow. Cloak and Dagger getting a nerf where they're increasing the cost of Eternal Bond, her ultimate, from 4,300 to 4,500, which means it builds a little bit slower. For Jeff, they're hitting his survivability because they're reducing the crit or headshot damage reduction from his Oblivious Cuteness passive from 70% to 50% damage reduction. For Rocket, they are buffing his ultimate where they're increasing the damage boost granted by the CYA from 25% to 40% boost, wow. And then for Ultron, they're going to be nerfing him where they're reducing the imperative patch healing amount from 35 per second to 30 per second, and the bonus by the followed ally from 10 per second to 5 per second. And then finally, they're increasing the cost of his ultimate, Rage of Ultron, from 3,400 to 3,700, which means again, it builds slower. And that is it for the mid-season 4 patch. Let me know if you guys are enjoying the season so far, or if you aren't, put some hot takes in the comments. We have another series on this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.